I'm making my guest's favorite drink.
You picked a mojito, Vesper Martini,
The House of Balloons cocktail.
nice and crisp.
Join me and some of the world's greatest writers.
Multi-award-winning author of 5 novels,
Bestselling author of more than 20 books,
a Pulitzer Prize among many other awards.
Welcome to Dedicated. I'm your host, Doug Brunt. Today we're with Nick Petrie. Nick worked for many years as a carpenter and building inspector before his debut novel, The Drifter, that introduced Peter Ash, a character that many, including Lee Child himself, have compared to Jack Reacher. Nick is now out with his 9th in the Peter Ash series. This one is called The Dark Time, and it's great. Nick, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
This is my kind of afternoon. We're going to have a little bit of whiskey on the rocks and talk thrillers and carpentry and all kinds of fun stuff.
Excellent.
How many rocks? Like a
that's
little more?
great. Yeah, that's
Perfect.
great.
Okay. And of course, when we drink any kind of whiskey product on the rocks, we do it out of our Jack Carr tumblers with the tomahawks.
Yeah.
Have you met Jack on the rounds?
I have. He's an interesting guy. He's a among other things, a marketing genius. And it's not just his work. It's the way he talks about his work that is really kind of astonishing.
He's amazing, and I follow him on social media as you.
Oh yeah,
you might as well. His book tours are like rock concerts.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It is a career to be envied.
And he's got merch. So,
of course.
Cheers.
Yeah. These are great.
So we were just talking before we got going about your early days in writing. I know you live now in the Milwaukee area. Is that where you were born?
Yeah.
Okay, and so you went to high school and you were writing for the paper and walking the hallways and
yeah. So my first sort of real writing experience was I was the editor of my high school newspaper. So at the beginning, what freshmen do is they write sports, and I'm not a sports guy, so I failed miserably at that. And then you write news stories, and I don't do fact very well, so I failed miserably at that as well. But they somehow decided I should be the editor-in-chief, and I got to assign myself basically an 8-part soap opera where I, made fun of my friends and my enemies, and people would stop me in the hall and say, "Oh, hey, that was really great. That was really, I really liked that," and it made me.
Were you creating stories, like fictional stories that they were in? There were characters in.
Yeah. Well, they were.
So you could kill off someone who shoved you in the locker room.
Yeah, they were gross stereotypes of kinds of people that one might recognize. But it was just, I was just having fun, and to realize that you could interact with people.
Yeah. With
this, right? That.
So you published one, and then you're immediately on book tour the next morning in the hallway.
That's right.
You can get instant feedback.
Yeah. But I was a big reader from a very young age. So that's how people become writers: is you fall in love with books, and then you think, well, what kind of story would I tell?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know we'll get more into your debut and all that, but did you have efforts at a novel, something longer than the newspaper form, in those earliest days of high school or college?
Not in those early days. I was a creative writing major, for whatever that is worth, creative writing and American culture, so a double major, and I actually do now for a living what I majored in college, which is sort of hilarious.
And this was at Michigan.
This was at Michigan.
Right? Yeah.
And I always wanted to be a novelist, but you learn to write novels by writing short stories. So I took a college course actually while I was still in high school. And I won a Hopwood Award, which is kind of one of the bigger undergraduate awards in the U.S. That's from Michigan, which was sort of like, oh, maybe there's something to this. Mm-hmm. But I wrote 3 novels that couldn't get published, which is also a very familiar story. Maybe not to you, but to most writers I know.
I know that heartbreak of when you finally just resign yourself to put it in the bottom drawer. And do they all still exist in the bottom drawer? Have you ever pulled one of those out?
There's a reason they didn't get published. That's just it's a long apprenticeship.
Yeah.
There are very few people who at a young age who really have the whole gift. I was not one of them. I got the third book. I got pretty close. My agent gave it to an editor who said, "Boy, we really like this, and can you make these changes and get it back to us in 3 months?" And then Lehman Brothers fell, and they were not buying anything from some schmo in Milwaukee. They were only really dealing with people they knew what their track record was.
Yeah.
So I did a little sledgehammer therapy, tore out my kitchen, and was like, I'm done.
That's
like
right,
it's never
yeah.
going to happen. But I am apparently kind of a pain in the ass when I don't have a writing project, according to my wife. And at that point, I was working as a freelance building inspector. So you buy a house, you hire a guy like me to tell you what's wrong with it. And I had all these clients coming home after the surge in Iraq, and I never served in the military. I'm interested in the news. I followed the war, but I hadn't given enough thought to what's it like to come home from that. And I would.
So you mentioned you were a building inspector. I know you got an MFA as well. Where did that? So you have college, you have an MFA, but then I think maybe even had your own sort of building inspection company at one point.
Well, no, I've been self-employed since I was 22. So I started a renovation company when I lived in Seattle. And my last big project was a $250,000 kitchen, and this was in this is early 2000. So that's a substantial kitchen in today's dollars.
Yeah.
But very old houses, trying to make them, sort of feel like they always should have been that way, kind of thing. And then 9/11 hit, and we had a not yet 1-year-old, and my wife really wanted to be closer to not her parents but my parents. So we moved back to Milwaukee, and I started a renovation business. And we had a terrible home inspector for the house that we bought, and my wife looked at me and she said, "You'd be good at that." So I started 2 businesses at once, and it was like, okay, which one takes off?
Yeah. And where was the MFA in all this?
That was kind of while I was running a renovation company.
Okay. And I know you wrote this short story that won an award in like 2006 or something like that. And as I was doing a little bit of homework for this interview, I came across this article about you from 2007. And it talked about, writing, but while you're sort of working your day job. And it said you had this building inspection business across 6 counties, and you knew the cafe in every county where you would stop and write, and you'd won this award. But this article came out in 2007. And so that's about 10 years almost before your debut. So you really were like slogging at this to make it happen.
Well, I had a young family, and I, for a while, I was the only person earning. My wife was home with our kid, and, it was kind of, all hands on deck, balls to the wall, running a business.
How many cracks at a novel did you take in that 10-year period from this article that I saw in 2007 until your debut, which was, I guess, 2016 with The Drifter?
I think I wrote 2 novels in that time frame. I think that's right.
Were they thrillers along the lines of what the Peter Ash series has become?
No, the first one, which was in my early 20s, was my Angry Young Man novel, which not only was nobody interested in, but I got some really unpleasant agent responses, like, "You should never write again." Like, really, like,
Wow, they went after you.
Oh, it was just
I don't often see that.
Yes, I offended somebody. I've still got the letters. I take them out and look at them from time to time just to remind myself of how lucky I have it.
Yeah.
The second one was, I had this genius idea of writing, chick lit was the thing back then. And so sort of writing a male version with male relationships and sort of the passages through male lives. And it was involved, was sort of following the course of the renovation of a house. The girlfriend leaves and blah, blah, blah. And I thought it was genius, and nobody else did, surprisingly. And then I thought, well, I love crime fiction. I'll write a crime novel, and I can just crank it right out because that stuff is so easy.
Yeah.
And it took me 5 years because it wasn't.
So The Drifter was a 5-year process.
No, there wasn't even The Drifter. So that was the one before. That was the one where I had an interested editor, and then sort of the bottom fell out of the economy. And then I just wrote. Right, I was talking to these vets, and I was like, the thing about being a home inspector is you are there at a very specific moment in people's life, and when you're in the military, there are things that you carry home from combat that you don't want to share with your family. You don't want them to carry that weight. And your friends who weren't in the war don't understand at all. And I'm a guy who you're going to see for 3 or 4 hours, and we're going to walk around this house that's a new start in your life. For most of these folks, it was their first home. And, I'm a chatty guy, and I'm super interested in people. And so, somebody's got a tattoo, or they're wearing an Army t-shirt. Oh, were you? And by the end of the inspection, mom and dad and, the in-laws are upstairs measuring for curtains, and I'm downstairs with this young guy in the basement. We're looking at, the foundation and the furnace and blah, blah, blah. And a story comes out. And I'm a safe person to talk to. They're never going to see me again. And I'm a good listener, and I'm interested. And so that was the start of The Drifter, that first book, because I wanted to understand what that was like. And I was like, it's just for me. Nobody's going to read this, right? I'm never going to get published. I already sort of was like, I'm done. But I wanted a story. I wanted to write something that I wanted to read, which is really the secret, I think, to
That's so the building inspector is like this angel therapist out of nowhere.
It's part of that job, and I really enjoyed it. Part of that job is the people management stuff, like the father-in-law who's trying to prove to his son-in-law how much he knows about houses when he has no clue, and you have to sort of gently, or the guy who starts going through the dresser drawers. I'm like, put your hands in your pockets, dude, or you're leaving. Like it's a weird, like there's this whole interpersonal piece of it.
Yeah.
So it was a blast.
And sounds like, so you have a fairly high density of veterans that you meet in the course of this work, and this informs what becomes Peter Ash and The Drifter.
Right.
So so this wins the Barry Award. It's nominated for a number of other awards like the Edgar and the Anthony. And it is also receives a wonderful blurb from Lee Child saying that, Peter Ash is the real deal, I think is the blurb he put on there.
He's very generous,
which is great. Have you met Lee, or do you know him a little bit? Terrific guy, as you say, very generous, and just a cool cat. Like he's
very much a cool cat. I was at an awards thing, and he was the guest of honor, and he stands up and gives this very eloquent speech, and then he says, "Oh, I should," like with no notes, no nothing. He says, "Oh, I should probably give my speech." Pulls out and then does it again with a whole different thing, and he's English, and so that is a big piece of his charm. But he's been very kind to me, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. Yeah,
it is funny that the English person has written basically the American James Bond, I think, as he is sometimes called. With Reacher.
I think of him as, and he's described it as this way. This is sort of the cowboy comes to town kind of thing, which is, I think, sort of the best description of what those Reacher books are.
Yeah. Did you, so Lee has a story about how he came up with the name Jack Reacher, which you probably know, and this audience, I think, already knows it too from prior talks with Lee on this show. But do you have a story of how you came up with the name Peter Ash?
So names are really important to me, and I spend probably way too much time thinking about what the names are. And so I tried several dozen, and I finally was like, I'm mixing and matching first names and last names, and I'm just going for what's the feel. And I finally was like, okay, I landed on this, but why? And so it had to be explained to me that Peter is the person at the pearly gates who is, determining whether you go up or down. And Ash is the product of a great conflagration, and that's the character is really the product of his war. So I wish I could have come up with that deliberately, but that's not often how fiction works.
That's a great story behind the name. That's way more than I was even expecting. Lee's is like, I had to reach high for a shelf, so he's a reacher. It's like, I love the Peter Ash story. That's amazing. That's very cool. Were you reading a lot of Lee Child or Michael Connelly? Some of these guys like Lee. There's a whole class of these guys like Lee and Harlan Coben and Michael Connelly. They all sort of started like the mid '90s and have been writing since.
Ever since.
Were you reading that in that sort of period as you were developing?
I was. I didn't discover him until probably book 6, and then I immediately kind of went back to. Everybody sort of discovered him at book 6. So I went back and read everything, and I've read everything all the way through. The thing that I love about Lee is he is really a consummate stylist. It's the character is great and the setting is great, but just the language. He really is just the precision of languages to me. And you don't notice it. You probably notice it, but most people are not going to sort of say, are not going to remark upon it because it flows so beautifully. But that's what I really struck me about him is that it's style that feels effortless but is style, whereas Michael Connelly is so stripped bare that it's almost like no style at all. I mean, it's the report, right? He's got the reporter muscle that it's almost like no style at all. So I am very much interested in languages and sentences and how language works and all of that stuff in service to sort of pulling you through that story and getting you to turn the pages
and with an atmosphere.
Yes.
Yeah,
Totally.
When you came out with The Drifter, did you know or did you imagine that this would be a series of many books where you'd stay with Peter Ash, or you thought, I might write some totally different book?
Well, I didn't set out to write series fiction. I love series fiction. I've read series fiction forever. But this was in my mind, this was a one-off that it was a story I wanted to tell myself. And I gave it to my then agent, and she said, they're going to want more of these.
Yeah.
And I'd written, I guess I'd read enough so that they could, I had to change very, very little to kind of have him moving on to the next thing.
That's so interesting you say that it was a conversation with the agent. So you were kind enough to say that you picked up my first novel from way back. And when that came out, it did okay. And so I'm talking with my agent, and I was like, I think I'm going to do here's my idea for the next one. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. We need to find out what that guy's doing next from the prior book. I'm like, I don't know. I was thinking I had some other idea. And the agent was like, no, you should really be doing this, which I ended up going the other way. But it's you clearly made the right call with Peter Ash, because now you're on book 9, and you've got this franchise basically.
Well, and a readership which is really I never expected to sort of be at this point in a career. The other piece.
By the way, you're still doing the building inspection and the carpentry? That's all long.
I'm writing full time, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I don't think I was doing both for 4 books, and I just was about to lose my mind. Just because, and my wife was annoyed at me, as she should well have been. But so I just was like, all right, I have to sort of go all in, and and I miss that life. I miss being out of the house occasionally. I work out of my house, and so I have to find ways to get.
Do you think I was actually going to open a quick section on your process here, so this is a good segue, because I want to pick up on that a little bit. Is there a different sense of urgency now? I mean, when you can write full time, it's very luxurious, and it's like, well, I'll write tomorrow, or I'll start at noon, or whatever, as opposed to catch as catch can. Like I've got 2 hours in this cafe before my next gig. I got to sit down and crush it.
So there's a lot of utility to that second piece, where it's like, you can't think too much. You got to crank out some words right now, and you have an hour and a half, 2 hours. Like that is a certain kind of thing. But there's a point at which, for me, it just made it harder.
Yeah.
The challenge with writing full time is the work becomes too important. It's harder to remember that it's play. And I've got a mortgage, right? I got to buy groceries. It's all on this very ethereal, kind of writing thing, this creativity thing. And so it's just, I think that's the hardest part of it. And for right now, I know how to write a novel. I've done this before. For now, right now I'm trying to think about, so how do I turn the first 10 years into the next 10 years? How do I, so I'm talking to lots of folks who have been doing this for a long, long time.
Yeah.
To be able, how do you think about this? How do you?
I love that phrase you just used of it. You got to remember that this is play. Scott Turow was on the show, and he had this great way of saying it. He would say goodbye to his wife in the kitchen after coffee and say, all right, I'm going to go upstairs and hang out with my imaginary friends for a little while.
Yeah.
And get it going, which is a great way to sort of get in that creative mindset, I think, of creating.
Right. Right.
All right, so staying with process for a bit, do you outline or not outline these books?
I'm a not outliner. I would like to get a little more formal. That's the wrong word. I really start with an incident, and I know kind of I know what that first incident's going to be. I have no idea what that's going to lead to. So like this book, I sort of was like, I'm interested in journalism, and I'm interested in sort of the how technological change feels now for a lot of people, and how all of this social change feels now for a lot of people. so that was kind of all I had. And I didn't know how that was going to manifest. And often I start out doing one thing and something else shows up. It is a way too organic process. It's not efficient in any way, shape, or form. I would love to be somebody who could outline. I've tried it. It made my life worse. So I just begin, and some days I know what I'm doing. The goal is to know what I'm doing that day and the next. But I will often
and you sort of leave one day with a little sort of starter for the next day. That's
I mean, this is a Hemingway trick, right? Is to end the day knowing what you're going to do next.
Are you quota minded in terms of day-to-day word count?
Oh, totally. It's kind of the only way to do it.
What's your number that you're at least hoping for?
1,500 words, and if I can,
a pretty big day.
If I can do more than that, I'm happy. If I try not to do more than 2,000, because then it's like I'm not leaving anything in the tank.
Yeah. You mentioned you're coming off a couple of 3-book deals here. Do you feel like you want to, like, by January I need to be at this point, by March I need to be at this point, et cetera, et cetera? Like, is it sort of blocked out by the calendar?
Not so much.
Because your debut is 16, you're 9 books in, you're sort of book a year basically.
Well, yeah, but I missed a year because my dad died, and then a month later my mother-in-law died, and that sort of throws a monkey wrench into everything. Just we had 2 houses to, fix up and clean out and sell. My mom at the time was 82, and so she needed me, and so it was just I couldn't dive in the way that I usually do in my normal life.
Do you have siblings?
Yes, but I'm the only local kid.
Only one in Wisconsin. There. Yeah.
So, and I was already late from the last book. And so it just never, I missed a year, and I kind of was waiting for it was really hard for me at the front end to do a book a year. It's a lot of work to do a book a year. And it was sort of like, oh crap, I finally missed it. But so then I wrote The Price You Pay, which was a bunch of fun and dives into sort of the past life of my hero's best friend. Sort of his sidekick character kind of takes a leading role, which was a whole bunch of fun to do. And then they asked me to write a standalone, and so I did that. But kind of this is way insider baseball, but like there's all kinds of stuff happened in publishing. My editor got fired. The whole thing sort of fell apart. So then I missed another year. Yeah. So like that is not.
That's it. So you've had 2 different editors or more?
I am on my 6th editor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's
because each one, just so the audience knows, the industry, you call it being orphaned. When your editor goes, then you're you need to reattach to some new editor. So you are orphaned for a bit of time. That's very hard. So 6 different editors on Peter Ash.
But I have, so kind of when all of this stuff happened, I reached out to, writers I know who've been doing this for a long, long time. And what quickly became clear, they all had stories like this. Yeah. And I came to think of this as the longevity tax, right? Like if you are doing this, if you get to do this long enough, like shit happens. It's a privilege
to be orphaned. That's a wonderful thing.
Well, I just like shit happens and you have to, that's how you learn, right? Yeah. And so for me, the question became, okay, what can I take out of this? How can I grow from this experience? Yeah. And one of the things is I've really learned to write faster. And I've just I'm working longer days. I've leaned in. My word count used to be 1,000 words, and now it's 1,500, 1,800. So and I have more stories I want to tell. So,
so we're jumping around a little bit in my mind's eye of how this would go, but you said something that makes me want to jump ahead to something else from your acknowledgments where you named a number of different writers. Yeah. Greg Hurwitz and others, CJ Box. How did you, in your early days, develop friendships and it's such an isolating profession.
It is.
And it's such a luxury to be able to call somebody like, holy crap, have you ever dealt with this? Or like, so you have benefited from developing some friendships. How'd you do that?
Well, the nice thing about the crime community is it's a really welcoming and generous community. My first book got nominated for an Edgar Award, which is sort of like, being nominated for the Oscars in the crime world, right? Like it's a big deal.
It's a thing, yeah.
And there's a black tie ceremony. Like it's a lot of fun. And the night before, there's a party at the Mysterious Bookshop downtown in New York, and that was where I first met CJ Box. And he sort of put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "I was nominated for an Edgar for my first book, and I didn't win. And of those 5 people, I'm the only person still writing. So don't get too wrapped up in winning or losing. Just keep working. And that was that was exactly what I needed to hear.
That's very nice mentorship reach out.
He is a lovely, lovely guy.
He's coming on the show in a couple months.
Great. Yeah. He is. There's a festival in Tucson that I go to where I often get to hang out with him. He's a great guy. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And Greg, came up to me and said, "Boy, I really liked your book." I mean, part of it is just like, if we're reading each other, right? And so it kind of works out that way.
Yeah.
And those were both guys I called.
Do you think that's unique to crime writers?
My understanding is that the romance community is the opposite, that it is all infighting and politics. And there's a little bit of that in crime. There are a few people who you really don't want to hang around with, and I'm not going to name any names.
Oh my God, please name
them. No. It's a small community. But we are all sort of the, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So I have a good friend who I won't name, who is a very accomplished guy. He's a wonderful writer, and I get this email. I am at sea with this book. Mm-hmm. I don't know what, will you please look at it? Well, of course I will. Mm-hmm. Right. And he's a friend, and I admire his work, and so I do that for at least one person every year, just because I'm trying to give back.
I love that. I don't think it's that way in every category. So for example,
literary fiction's also problematic, right? When the spoils are so small, right.
Yeah. And so I've been doing nonfiction more recently, and the blurb game I think is a little ridiculous anyway. It's sort of a, I don't know, back scratching mutual thing.
Yes.
But you ask for blurbs, and my editor, we were talking about. I won't name names either, I guess, but. We were thinking this would be a great, blurb for the book because it's kind of in that zone and whatnot. And he's like, I don't know. He's going to find you very threatening. He's going to think you're competitive and not do it. So we didn't even ask the person, just sort of knowing that. So I do in the narrative history category. I think there might be sharper elbows perhaps than crime where and my belief is across all of these categories, it should be supportive. I mean, you don't want to say anything dishonest. You don't say this is a great book if it's a crap book. Actually, I think that's defeating. But if it's a good book, you should be promoting it because that gets more people into the bookstore. So if someone has a great experience with your book, they're like, give me another one like that. Right. I don't care who it's by.
Right.
And then more people are having good experiences with great books.
Right. I do a lot of that on my socials. I have friends, and it's like, oh, so-and-so's news book, and I say something about it, and you guys should pick this up. And I get a lot of responses like, oh, I hadn't read this person before. Thank you much and now I have 10 new books to read.
This is a good time to talk about our mutual pal, Adam Plantinga.
Adam Plantinga, who was just nominated for an Edgar Award.
For Hardtown?
For Hardtown.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That's awesome. So Adam, author of The Ascent, Hardtown, he's got a third coming out later this year. This guy is great. He's a San Francisco police officer.
Right, a street sergeant.
I mean, he's a great follow on Twitter, by the way. Do you ever follow him on Twitter?
He's so funny. Yeah. And I really he wrote this book called 400 Things Cops Know.
Yes.
Which is
also blurbed by Lee Child.
Right. Which is almost like little prose poems. Mm-hmm. And they're alternately funny and super poignant, and I think he's a super talented guy, and a tough street cop. Yes, but I don't want him to hear us saying nice things about him.
Adam, hopefully he won't tune in to all this. All right, so back to your process then. Now that we've stroked Adam a little bit, do you edit as you go, or do you sort of sprint to the finish and then come back and edit?
I am an edit as you go guy. I try to sprint forward for the first act, because otherwise I can get all wrapped around my own axle about, is this the right thing or the right way, or but in a given day, I will sit and I'll go back a couple of days and I will read through, and that's kind of how I get started. It's
a nice warm up.
I just sit and stare. I'm not allowed to do anything. I don't have to write, but I'm not allowed to do anything else. And so I sort of, the document's open, I'm eating my breakfast, and it's like, oh, that sentence not quite right. This paragraph I got to change these two, the order of these two sentences. And then I'm kind of rolling forward. And then I get to the end of what I've written, and it's more polished, and then I have my notes about what I'm supposed to do that day, and it's a fairly easy transition into that if I've done it the way I should.
What is the whole 8 to 1? What's your sort of writing schedule?
More like 10 to 6 or 6:30.
A full long day.
Yeah, well, I after lunch I take a walk. I'm a big fan of sort of the nature/exercise creativity thing, which is there's all this science. This is one of my areas of interest because it has been really hard for me to write a book a year. So I'm really trying to. I mean, this is I'm learning to write faster, and this is part of how I'm doing this. Is like, what are the things that actually work? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have a piece in Writer's Digest about sort of how to keep things moving forward.
You got to send that to me. I'm dying.
I'll send you the draft.
It's funny you say the book a year thing. Just now, I mean, Lee Child's getting a fair amount of play here, but he would say, because he was basically every September there was a new Reacher book,
right?
And he would say, people think I just go into the back room and crank a wheel and out comes a book. Like, it's really hard. He felt a lot of pressure to get these books out every September, but the audience expected it and his publisher expected it.
Right. Well, and I heard an interview with him once that again kind of had a big impact on me. He said, every time I sit down to write a book, I think I've forgotten how to do this. Like I've lost it. Like I can't make this happen. And you just have to sort of sit with it for a while and just sort of trust yourself. Because all you have is your taste. All you have is your sort of judgment about what's interesting and what will pull a reader in.
Yeah.
But yeah, people sort of think, writing is this effortless, and it is the glory to slog ratio is 10 to 1 in the slog.
It's like surfing, really. You're like,
there's a lot of paddling.
Half hour
there's a lot of paddling.
And then you get like 30 seconds on the wave.
Yeah. Absolutely. I like that. I like that analogy, actually.
I just thought of that, by the way. You brought me there. You led me to the water.
Can I steal that? Yeah.
It's all yours. Yeah. How about early readers? Your wife sounds involved in your career and inspirational to you in your career.
Yeah, she is. So she reads, I sort of write the first act and I give it to her, and it's fairly raw, but I just was like, so is there anything there? And she almost always says, this is great, keep going. Every fifth book, she will say, no, throw this away, start something else. And she has great judgment. She's a huge reader. And in a way, so my readership leans more female than male. For whatever reason.
That must be true throughout crime, though, I would think. It's got to be like 65-35.
It really depends, right? So if you're writing more in the military end, so I have a military character, but these are not military books.
Yeah.
That skews overwhelmingly kind of older male.
Like Jack Carr might be more male than you are.
Jack Carr's, yes, much more male. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And that's, in part that's... I didn't do it on purpose. I wasn't smart enough to do it on purpose, but Margaret read all my early stuff, and if I wanted her to like it, right? And Margaret does not read a lot of tough guy crime stuff. So there has to be character. There has to be relationships. There has to be, good, interesting, surprising prose. The dialogue has to feel compelling. There have to be good for her, who is a kind of a non-crime reader, to be engaged. I have to. It has to function in a certain way.
Yeah.
So, she was part of my, kind of learning process.
So speaking of all this nuanced technique, do you read other crime writers while you're drafting your first?
It all depends. Longer and longer phases, I go where I kind of hate fiction, which is not something any fiction writer should say probably, but like, I just can't read it. I've been doing this long enough that like I know what all the tropes are. I know what all of the I know I can tell from the beginning of the book how it's going to end. Like I have just been so deep in this world for so long. So I read my friends, right? I read C.J. Box, I read Greg Hurwitz, I read Lee Child, I read Michael Corrida, I read Don Bentley, I read Mark Graney, kind of some of the people who I came up with for sure, and all the people who have been kind enough to, sort of talk to me since then. But, you can't become a better writer by reading stuff that's like yours, right? That's at your level. You really have to, if you want to learn, you got to read above yourself. So, I'm a big Cormac McCarthy fan. One of my all-time favorite books is the Charles Fraser book, oh my God, Cold Mountain, which is a post-traumatic stress love story about the Civil War, and it's, and the outdoors, which is a big part of what I write about. So I try to, you're never going to get better if you read crap. Right. So I have friends who are, I think, better writers than I am. So I certainly read them, but I also you can't read crap and expect to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Along those lines, I used to, when I was younger, if I started a book, I felt this obligation to finish it. And my wife was like, why are you doing that? And then this other friend came and said, at this age, you're 50 something, you got this many years left, you read this many books a year, you've got like 600 books left in your life. I'm like, oh my God, I'm never finishing a bad book again.
Yeah. do you know that it's, I think it's Oliver Berkman. Was it 8,000 hours? You only have so many hours left. You only have so many hours or days in your life. And pay attention to what you do with them. Right?
Yeah. You got to be thoughtful about
I begin a lot more books than I finish.
Yeah. But I didn't used to, but that's a new thing for me. I'm on your plan now. How about, one thing that's very different from certainly Lee and many other crime writers is you will often write from different points of view. So it's not always Peter Ash who's, kind of leading us around. There's other characters. Do you have to shift into a different mindset? Is it like a method actor? How do you do that?
A little bit, I guess. I mean, I know these characters so well that it's easy enough to sort of find their voice and their point of view.
Yeah.
The bigger challenge is I also write from the villain's point of view often, and to sort of find what I want is for you to be sympathetic toward the villain's goals, right? There's a saying in fiction, right? Even the villain is a hero in his own mind. So I want you to sort of I get why that bad person is doing this bad thing. And not that it excuses it, but to, the world is full of gray, right? Black and white to me is not that interesting. And so I'm interested in human motivation and why people make the choices they make and what the influences are on us to, why we become who we become. So that to me, that's a big part of the fun. And as a writer, one of the best compliments is, somebody, saying how much they liked this villain in a given book.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, we did touch on your acknowledgments already, so I've read it. But
well, at least you've read the acknowledgments.
That's the thing. I think I don't know what small percentage of the population I'm in, but I always read the acknowledgments.
Me too.
Of every book.
Me too. I learn from the acknowledgments.
I do too.
Yeah.
And one thing I learned from yours, I finished. I'm like, this sounds like a guy I would like. He sounds like a good guy. And you referenced some friends, and I also wanted to give you a moment to talk about your reference to veterans and support for veterans and things like that. So this is a very cool part of your acknowledgments. So I thought I wanted to just sort of pass the ball to you for a moment.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's an entirely unexpected part of my writing life. That the first book, especially, The Drifter, is about a guy with post-traumatic stress he starts out basically living in his truck. He doesn't think of himself as a damaged person, but he is a damaged person. And I get so much stuff from vets, and I talk to veterans groups, which is weird because I'm not a veteran myself, and they're always very skeptical until about 3 minutes in when it's like very clear that I understand what they're going through, because I've done a lot of research on that front. But I get stuff from vets who the one that always sticks with me, and I've had variations on this from cops and firefighters, but there was a young guy who sent me a Facebook message. I spent the summer trying to figure out how to kill myself. And then somebody gave me your book, and I realized I'm not going crazy. I have post-traumatic stress, and I'm getting help. And I just wanted to thank you for that. And by the way, there's a picture of him and his wife and his 3 little kids. And I never thought that would be a part of what I do, but it means a lot to me. And there's still, that book came out in 2016, and the series is really Peter's journey from sort of fresh out of war. He's got his post-traumatic stress shows up as claustrophobia, so he can't really be inside for more than 15 or 20 minutes without having a panic attack. And so, because of those conversations about that first book, it really is, especially those first 5 books, it is sort of, what is the path forward, right? If you've had this experience and you're having trouble with it, sort of what is the path that you go through? And so that's really, the first book is Peter is, messed up, can't be inside for more than 20 minutes. And he's a peripatetic guy. He's moving around because he's following the weather, basically. And then the next book, he falls in love, and there's an incentive, right, to figure out how to have a more normal life. And it kind of moves forward from there. And then he has a relapse, which is a big piece of folks with post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And sort of how do you come out of that? And so that's become sort of this other kind of mission for me, is to sort of have this conversation out in the open. And if I can help in any way, it is never anything that I ever, I didn't think this might happen. I didn't hope for this to happen, but it's added this whole other dimension to my life, which I'm really grateful for.
Well, it's a great passage within your acknowledgments section.
Thank you.
And as an aficionado of acknowledgments, I will say one sort of side note I've noticed, if the acknowledgments pages last more than 3 or 4 pages, it really becomes like an acknowledgement of oneself.
Right.
It's you got to keep it a little tight there. And but yours is really well done. I finished. I'm like, can't wait to meet this guy.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So before we get into the lightning round, of course, an Amazon Netflix series on Peter Ash would be pretty cool. Have books been optioned along the way? What's the
whole thing has been optioned a couple of times. We got this close to Netflix. We got so close to Netflix. We had some showrunners who wrote a pilot episode. Netflix, basically signed on, commissioned another episode, commissioned the series Bible, which is sort of how does the season play out? What's the transition to season 2? All of this was before the writer's strike.
Which was when?
A year and a half ago.
Okay.
And then, and in the meantime, basically Netflix for the first time released, basically acknowledged publicly that they had actually lost viewers. And that triggered this whole sort of across the sector, gosh, maybe streaming isn't all that in a bag of chips. That maybe it's not the forever hockey stick, uphill, money. And so everybody pulled back. Before that happened, it was like money's unlimited. We're going to keep making stuff. And after that, it just became so much harder.
Yeah.
But so back to Lee Child, my film and TV rep is like, so everybody's asking, where's the next Jack Reacher? Where's the next Reacher? Which is a show on Amazon, which is pretty good actually. And so they sort of tailored Peter, who is not Jack Reacher, sort of to that market. And of course, in the end, the reason it didn't happen was because it was too much like Jack Reacher.
Interesting.
So which is,
I mean, as you say, it's very different. There are some parallels, of course. They're tall. They're, former military. But it's a different vibe in the book
for sure.
But boy, Netflix needs to mix it up, because the stuff they're turning out right now and their sort of like thriller crime thing it's atrociously bad.
Well, and a lot of it's just cheap, right? I mean, they're looking to make stuff that's
totally cheap.
Yeah. And you could make. Right, these are very low tech books, right? You could make these for not a whole lot of money. There's not a lot of special effects you would be needed, which is an asset when you're.
By the way, if this took off, would you have written for the show, or would you stick to the books?
Originally I said no, I didn't want to be involved, but I think in order to have it be the thing I want it to be, I would have to be involved. So I think I might end up writing a pilot episode and doing the Bible and trying to.
Have you ever tried writing an episode or a TV, a screen?
No, I've read a bunch of them. And I have friends who do it. So I have lots of friends who I can sort of be like, how much of an idiot am I with this draft? Which is super helpful.
That's good. Your phone a friend network is very good. That's great.
In this world, that is what you have is your taste and who your friends are. And that's true in so many things in life.
Yeah.
And it is another one of the gifts of this writing life is that I get to like hang out with my heroes, my writing heroes, which is kind of an amazing thing.
Yeah. Who are the top heroes, would you say?
I mean, of the folks still with us, I mean, CJ Box is, kind of unassailable. Robert Crace is somebody who kind of I wanted to be in my early days. And he's now a friend. And actually his latest, The Big Empty, was just nominated for both the Edgar and the International Thriller Writers Award for Best Novel. Greg Hurwitz is somebody whose work I admire enormously. William Kent Kruger, who is, it's a very different kind of style, but he's really, really good at it. Mm-hmm. Who else? Mark Graney, who is a lovely. Have you ever had Mark Graney on?
No.
You should have Mark on. He's a great guy. He's a very gracious, smart, thoughtful guy. I don't know who else. I mean, I have a giant stack of books at home.
I hate to put you in the spot.
Yeah,
it's like one of those Oscar acceptance things. I'm going to forget 10 people are going to be super pissed off in a minute.
No, and many other people.
Yeah, and many other. Yeah, we'll cover it that way. Same for me. It's like Nelson DeMille, who passed. I don't know if you ever read him, but his stuff is so good.
Well, and he was such a good guy.
Yeah. Very, very generous guy as well.
For sure.
All right, so on to the lightning round.
I'll go. Okay,
Nick Petrie.
Here we go.
Your favorite book as a kid?
So I fell in love with this pulp fiction series, the Doc Savage books. Do you ever heard of these?
No, I don't know this.
Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze, very sort of adventure fiction. He's a physician, and he's surrounded by guys who have different specialties, and he lives on the 86th floor of the Empire State Building, and he has his. I mean, these were all.
Are these sort of illustrated semi?
No.
Like Hardy Boys level.
No. They're for adults, but they started in the 30s.
Okay.
So like his gyrocopter is up on the up by the spire of the Empire State Building. It's just very. I don't know. How old was I when I was reading those? 10, maybe. And there was something about sort of the outlandishness, and the prose is so purple. It's very, it's I went back to read one, and actually, Dwayne Johnson was going to do a Doc Savage movie, which I would pay big money to see. So I don't know if that's happening or not, but so that's kind of my early the ridiculousness of sort of pulp fiction.
But that's great. That was the book you would disappear with for hours.
Oh,
and Mom, I just read 50 pages.
Well, one Christmas, my mom somehow found, and they're written by a whole bunch of different writers, but like Lester Dent, who is a famous pulp writer, had, wrote 50 of them. So my mom at one point.
Was it like the Franklin W. Dixon Hardy Boys thing? Like it all came out under one writer, but it was actually 10 different writers.
Yeah. So very, very commercial stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know, there was something that she had bought for the house came in this long, skinny box. And she had somehow found literally 50 of these books. And so that was my Christmas present. And I don't think they saw me again until the following Christmas. So yeah, that's my earliest.
That's great. Whatever gets you reading,
totally.
Reading the Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And I'm sort of leafing through this this is absurd, but it actually is engaging even to me.
Yeah, totally.
They loved it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, they're reading a book. I'm happy.
How old are your kids?
They're 16, 14, and 12.
Okay. Have you the Mysterious Benedict Society? Have they found those books?
No.
That would be more for your youngest, but very well written, big chunky books. Smart people solving puzzles.
All right. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, All
right, good. Well, I later have a show recommendation for you.
Oh,
we're
excellent.
getting to that question.
Okay.
Ludwig. So I don't forget. I'll just say it right now.
Oh yeah, my wife just watched it and told me I should watch it.
It's amazing. On BritBox or Amazon.
Yeah.
So funny. It's like solving puzzles. Smart guy. Book or books you're reading now?
I had to pull these out because otherwise I'll figure out what I'm reading now. So my son gave me this for Christmas. Haruki Murakami, What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. He's a Japanese writer. He is sort of a darling of the sort of literary set, but this is a very sort of plain spoken. I'm a runner, and I've been a runner for a long time, and it's just sort of about how he started writing and what running means to him. And it's like sitting in a coffee shop and talking to a friend. It's just sort of so smooth and simple. So that's sort of my before bed comfort reading. And then The King of Confidence, Miles Harvey. This might be up your alley. It's about a guy who sort of spun off of Brigham Young, the founder of the Mormons, and tried to steal his followers and ended up commandeering an island in Lake Michigan and becoming its king in the mid 1800s. And I'm not far enough into it to know how it ends, but the prose is wonderful. It's funny. It's a little biting. So this is, I'm in a nonfiction kick currently.
That sounds, I will check that out. Like, who knew we had a king on Lake Michigan back then? But I read Under the Banner of Heaven by Krakauer.
Oh, he's wonderful. I have not read that one.
Oh, it's about the Mormon church, the foundings of it, and all of that. It's haunting. Like, it's very crazy, which I imagine that might also be. But speak of the Murakami one in the running, it reminded me of something I meant to follow up with you on before and forgot, which is that you write, you lunch, you exercise, and then you write again. For the afternoon. So what's sort of that middle section of the day of like lunch, exercise, and then the return to the chair?
Well, so there are all of these scientific links between being out in nature and exercising, right? You're basically moving the blood through your brain because you're increasing your circulation, and creativity. And so for me, if I'm like, oh, I don't have enough time, I'm just going to, kind of eat a quick lunch and go back to work, I never get as much done as if I add, 30 minutes to my day and I go, walk a mile and look at Lake Michigan. And like it's a real thing. And my first thing in the morning, I get up and I go outside, and I'm running, or I'm on my bike, or I'm just walking, or, we've had this horrific weather.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
So, I just sort of put on every item of clothing I own and I go outside for, 45 minutes. But there are all of these links between exercise and nature. And I'm fortunate enough, I live in kind of a leafy suburb. So, I can kind of get my vibes that way. But I also exercise to my mom's line. My mom is 85, and she always says that she exercises so she doesn't kill people. And that'll tell you something about my mom, but it's also like, it's such a great, if you're stressed out about anything, right, just go move, go walk for 10 minutes.
Going
So
I sometimes find I've been sitting for 4 hours or 5 hours, and then when I try to stand up, my hips are locked in this other, the hip flexor band or whatever has gotten tight. That's good. Just to get up and move a little bit throughout the day is
right. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, this you might have some expertise on. The greatest war movie ever.
Oh, that is really easy. That's the Tom Hanks movie, which of course the title now escapes me. Private Ryan, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, that storm the beach scene is wild,
astonishing, and harrowing.
Yeah.
Although I watched not long ago. This is a much darker, which is hard to have a darker movie when you're, it's a World War II movie. But Fury, which is a Brad Pitt World War II tank movie. It's beautiful. It's harrowing. It's almost, there's a section where there's basically a tank duel. And I'm not a giant kind of military guy, but the stakes are so high, and I know enough about sort of the emotional consequences of when you go through an experience like that, that both those movies really stick with me.
Yeah, I haven't seen Fury yet, but I remember seeing about it, the trailers or whatever. So I'll check that out.
I mean, it's been, I don't know, 10 years or something it's been out. But
all right, so this pair of questions coming up will help to draw the compare and contrast of Ash and Reacher. One character trait that Peter Ash and Jack Reacher have in common.
Well, the peripatetic part, right? So every Peter Ash book takes place in a different city, or a different place. And in part, it's because I'm really interested in place, and because every place has a certain kind of story. So in part, it's a writer's cheat. It's a way to sort of, I find the place by coming up with a story I want to tell, or I find a story by coming up with a place I want to write about. And Reacher is just, he is somebody who is just a rootless person. Lee talks about him as sort of the cowboy, riding into town. And I think that's a wonderful, it's so iconic Americana from a British guy.
Right.
But so that's part of what we do have in common.
Yeah. All right. So then the flip, what is one character trait they do not have in common?
Well, Reacher's a Superman, right? Reacher, he doesn't really feel pain. There's not a lot of remorse. Those are really kind of revenge novels. I mean, it's a lot about punishing the bad guy. And I am really interested in the consequences of war, the consequences of violence, and the things that Peter has done stay with him. And how does that how does that require his character to evolve, right? Peter, feels pain. He feels sorrow. He is right. He's more of a real person, right? And not a superhero character.
Yeah. It's interesting in the Reacher show, they do play that up a little bit. The way the guy delivers it, he's so much, he's almost an automaton in his sort of acting delivery of the character.
Well, and just the physicality of him, right? I mean, he is so.
Although they did cast a guy even bigger in the last season.
Oh yeah, which was hilarious. Yeah, that was hilarious. I think that's probably my favorite Reacher novel was the one that they made that is that Bad Luck and Trouble that they made that season out of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a copy of Killing Floor, which is Lee's debut. I mean, one thing I love to do for writers I love and admire, I get the first edition of their first book.
Right.
So I had that, and I had Lee sign it for me. And he goes, the truly rare ones are the unsigned ones. Like he's like, the guy's like his hand has got to be like a cramped little claw by now after all the signing he's done. Okay, so favorite few recent TV shows to recommend to the audience.
My wife and I started watching something called Shetland, which is a BritBox show.
Awesome. Yeah.
Which is quite dark. The first couple seasons really follow novels by Anne Cleeves, which is sort of the characters that it's based on. But after there are another 8 seasons that are much longer and more convoluted, and they are it's a police show, but it's very human.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the human consequences and the human frailties. I've done some traveling. My son lives in London, so I've done some traveling through Scotland and Wales and the UK. And so it's I love those landscapes. And so it's a gorgeous show.
Yes. It's very atmospheric. Douglas Henshaw plays the guy Perez, D.I. Perez. I love that show, and the early seasons in particular I loved. It's very gray and whatnot, and wind blown. There are no trees. I think you notice there's not a single tree in the entire show because it's all totally blown out on this super far north island.
Yeah.
In northern Scotland, but I love that show. It's speaking of like a place. Place is like a character for you.
Yes.
It's so atmospheric, and it like the place becomes a huge part of the show.
Well, and I love the things that sort of make you wonder what it would be like to live there, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm a giant fan of Landman.
Just starting it. I don't know anything about that.
I've only seen the first season. I'm waiting because my wife will never watch it. So I'm kind of waiting for a chunk of time when I can sort of dive in. But Billy Bob Thornton, Texas Oil Patch, a couple of pretty outrageous Texas women. And it's a great story, and it's beautifully shot, and it's both exciting and I don't know if there's a lot of pay. It's a really deep story, I think.
Oh, good. All right. I have like 20 friends who have been saying, you've got to watch that as soon as you can. Run, don't walk. And I'm just now getting to it.
Well, I love the whole Taylor Sheridan sort of thing. I still haven't seen Yellowstone, but he's done a bunch of other stuff that I have really liked.
He's like the busiest guy in Hollywood.
Well, he just signed some new deal. Had a deal with Paramount, and he just signed some deal with somebody else. So I don't really track that stuff, but I did see it. But I just think his storytelling chops are second to none. And there's another show that's also a Paramount show called Lioness, which is sort of Iraq War era espionage from a female point of view.
Is that based on a book by Bojelian? Bojelian had a book called Lioness.
I would have a hard time thinking that was him. It's a very military thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But the women in it are spectacular. And I don't think they're going to make another season, which makes me sad. But
okay. Those are good suggestions. And Ludwig, you've got to.
Yeah, I will check it out. I will check it out.
Fun.
Yeah.
It's a lighthearted, fun but smart show.
Yeah. When I'm traveling, she often dives into other things to, keep her entertained. And so now I have to go back and check it out.
Catch up. Yeah. All right. Well, the last question for Nick Petrie.
Uh-oh.
One piece of advice for the audience. It can be on anything. It can be writing advice or whatever you think.
Well, I mean, writing is where my head is. So I don't believe in luck. But most of life is luck, but the only way that you get lucky is if you keep showing up. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is that you're interested in writing especially, I wrote 3 books that couldn't get published. Pretty much most writers I know wrote a bunch of stuff to get the thing that worked. And that's true of life as well. So that would be my just keep going, don't give up, make your own luck.
I love it. Great. Nick, awesome to see you. Thanks for coming in.
It's been my pleasure, and thanks for the bourbon. It's excellent stuff.